It was a big number yesterday, Chris Wallace, 31% growth in the third quarter. He did take a victory lap. Is this enough to sway any undecided voters out there about the strength in the economy as we try to recover?
There's no question it'll sway some voters, although, you know, the next time that somebody goes to the polls and says, I'm going to vote for so-and-so because of the GDP in the third quarter, will be the first time somebody does that. You know, people process the economy in much more personal ways. Do they have a job? Do their friends have a job? Do they think they're going to have a job in a few months? And yes, it's a lot better than when the economy fell off a cliff in the second quarter. But as you point out, we aren't all the way back. In fact, we're down from the beginning of 2019 to where we are now. We're still down 3.5%, which is basically what we lost total during the Great Recession back in 2008 and 9. There are still 10 million people who lost jobs in the second quarter who haven't gotten them back. And, you know, this explosion of the coronavirus with 90,000 new cases yesterday, raising a lot of questions whether, not that we're going to have a second quarter lockdown, but whether or not we're going to start to see some very selected retrenchments and jobs lost and places closing up. So, you know, there are two tales of the economy. Is it half empty or half full? If you're a Trump supporter, you're going to think it's half full, and maybe if you're undecided, you may think it's half full and go vote. The other point we got to make, though, is 80 million people have already voted. They didn't hear these numbers yesterday.
Fair enough. And one other data point that we did get was those jobless claims numbers. And while they did come down, which was a good sign and a good data, but they're still historically high. 787,000 is the 4-week average last year, 217,000. So we are still dealing with this, Chris. And here we are 4 days out from Election Day. Before I move on to the balance of the Senate, Chris, big picture, you're thinking as we are now so close to this day, the record voter turnout that we're seeing, the polls, what's your thought?
Well, about the Senate, I think a lot of it depends on the presidency. You know, in a lot of these states that are so close, a winning candidate might be able to put the Senate candidate in that state over the top. A failing candidate might drag down the Senate candidate of his party in that particular state. There are about 8 races that are too close to call or leaning but not likely, or let alone locked up for a particular side. Most of those are Republican incumbents. The current balance of power is 53-47. There's in Alabama, the incumbent Democrat, Doug Jones, is considered almost certain to lose. Remember, that was this Jeff Sessions special election. That now makes it 54-46. So Democrats are going to need either 4 votes for a net pickup of 4 Senate seats, plus Kamala Harris as the vice president to break ties, or 5 if Donald Trump wins. They're on the board. You could look at Maine and Susan Collins. You can look at Iowa and Joni Ernst. You can look at North Carolina and Tom Tillis. You know, we can go on and on at Martha McSally in Arizona. But all of those are really close races. So, you know, you would need a blue wave. You would need, you know, all of the races that are too close to call right now going Democratic for them to take control of the Senate. That could happen, as has happened in some presidential elections, but it's certainly no sure thing.
Mitch McConnell making it very clear how he thinks things are going to turn out. Listen.
As I've said repeatedly for 6 months, it's a 50-50 proposition. I've got a lot of people up. 23 Republicans, only 12 Democrats. There are dogfights all over the country.
So a 50-50 proposition. We have a lot of exposure, he said. He said, if you look at the Democratic Party today, you ought to be frightened. We're fighting for our way of life. As for him, he says he feels he'll be successful. But what do you think about that? A 50-50 proposition forecasts Mitch McConnell.
Well, you know, to a certain degree, that's spin, because he wants to get Republican votes out. We think that the vast majority, if you believe voter registration, that the vast majority of the votes that have turned out, the 80 million, and probably by Election Day it'll be 90 million, that they are going to be leaning Democratic, probably voting for Trump and the Democratic candidate in the Senate in that particular state. So he really needs and the president needs a big turnout on Election Day. Those tend to be more pro-Trump, more Republican voters. It is, I think 50-50 is a pretty honest description of the odds at this point, which means there's as good a chance that the Democrats are going to take control of the Senate as that the Republicans will maintain control. And as he pointed out, it's 23-12. You know, what happens is you got to go back 6 years. And back in 2014 was a big Republican year, so they elected a lot of Republican senators. Now all those senators are up, and in a lot of them in swing states. So the Democrats are playing offense in a lot of those states. Democrats are playing, rather Republicans are playing defense, trying to hold on to those seats in some real toss-up states.
Can't wait for Fox News Sunday. It is the last one before Election Day, Chris. A couple big guests you've got coming up from the Trump campaign, Corey Lewandowski and Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota. Where two of both candidates will be traveling there today to Minnesota.
Yeah, that is very interesting. I just went back to make sure I was right, and I was. The last time Minnesota voted for a Republican for president was Richard Nixon back in 1972. Yeah. 11 straight presidential elections that have gone to the Democrat. Real quickly, we're going to also have the latest Fox News polls, so we'll give you a sense of where this race stands Sunday morning, 48 hours before Election Day. And we're also going to have, and you know, the most powerful, most important person on Fox News on election night, Arnon Mishkin, the head of the Fox News decision team, because, you know, we're all going to be before the cameras talking. He's going to be the one calling the races. And I asked him, are we going to know who the president is on election night? He said, ask the voters. It comes down to math. If they've made a clear choice, we'll know. If it's too close to call, we won't.
Unbelievable. Cannot wait. We will be watching on Sunday. Chris, thank you.